In the 1990s and 2000s, Chuck E. Cheese was the most sought-after venue to host a child's birthday party. With a mix of reasonably decent pizzas, impressive animatronics, and countless video games to keep kids entertained, Chuck E. Cheese was the perfect venue. Fast forward to 2019, and the company had more than 550 locations with over 15,000 employees and posted revenues of $913 million. So, I asked myself, how does a seemingly successful pizza chain that has served thousands of families across the world and is adorned by kids even to this day suddenly go bankrupt? Before we dig into why Chuck E. Cheese filed bankruptcy, let's take a look at how it all began. Chuck E. Cheese was founded by Nolan Bushnell, who, fun fact, was also the co-founder of the video game company Atari and is widely regarded as the father of the video game industry. If you aren't familiar with Atari, the name Steve Jobs may ring a bell. Steve Jobs, the co-founder of Apple, was first employed by Nolan at Atari as a video game designer. In fact, Nolan was one of the people who inspired Steve Jobs to start Apple. You could also say that Nolan is a serial entrepreneur. To this day, he has founded more than 20 companies, with Atari and Chuck E. Cheese being his most notable ventures. Okay, so what does all this have to do with Chuck E. Cheese? Well, while working at Atari, Nolan noticed that restaurants that placed Atari arcade games at their locations were making significantly more revenue than those without the arcade games. So in 1977, he started working on the concept of a chain restaurant where families could enjoy great pizza and also play video games while they waited for their food. That same year, he made his dream a reality by opening the first Chuck E. Cheese Pizza Time Theater. Have you ever wondered why Chuck E. Cheese's mascot is a rat? I know I have. Who sets out to make a rat the face of their company and their brand? Well, Nolan's original name for his restaurant was Coyote Pizza, but after ordering what he thought was a coyote costume, which turned out to be a rat costume, he thought it might be easier to just change the name of his restaurant to Rick Rat's Pizza. But think about that for a second. Would you want to eat in a restaurant with the word rat in the name of it? Probably not. So after some convincing, he decided on the name of Chuck for his mascot, and Chuck E. Cheese was born. I wasn't aware of this before making this video, but the Chuck E. Cheese team actually created a pretty sad backstory for their mascot, which helped him gain fame early on. According to the story, Chuck is an orphaned mouse who doesn't know his own birthday. After getting kicked out of the orphanage, he ends up finding his way to a New York pizzeria because he loves the smell of pizza, where the owner employs him to sing to his customers. Okay, let's get back to business. After the massive success of the first Chuck E. Cheese restaurant, Nolan Bushnell quickly opened several more restaurants, which also did quite well. It was evident that his concept was a success. The customers were very happy, the kids loved the entertainment, and the restaurants were profitable. Within no time, many businessmen were contacting Bushnell for franchises. Among them was Robert Brock, who wanted to purchase 280 Chuck E. Cheese locations across 16 states. The two men came to an agreement and signed the papers. After a few short months, Robert backed out of the deal. He went on to open a competing restaurant with the same concept, a pizzeria where you could play video games while you waited for our food. As you would expect, Nolan sued Robert for breaking the deal. The end result was that the court ruled that Nolan was entitled to a small percentage of the sales of Robert's new restaurants. Robert's new restaurant was known as Showbiz Pizza Place. It competed head-to-head with Chuck E. Cheese and managed to make a name for itself. Over the next few years, there seemed to be a race to see who could open more restaurants across the country. As the two restaurants were expanding rapidly, they raised money through whatever means possible, and Chuck E. Cheese took on a lot of debt in order to open new restaurants. The only problem was many of the restaurants it opened were done so in a hurry without any solid market research. As a result, many of its newly opened restaurants were not profitable. The company found itself in a tough financial position and ended up filing for bankruptcy in 1984. What happened next is somewhat unbelievable. Robert's Showbiz Pizza Place purchased Chuck E. Cheese and continued to operate its restaurants under the Chuck E. Cheese name. Nolan resigned and moved on, eventually going on to found several other companies. Until 1998, the newly combined company operated restaurants under two different names, Chuck E. Cheese and Showbiz Pizza Place. Then, in 1998, they merged the brands under one name, Chuck E. Cheese. At that time, the franchise was struggling and needed a new strategy to gain back the interest of kids and their parents. As a result, they introduced new menu items, new video games, and new points-based system, making it easier and quicker for the kids to earn prizes. They also started remodeling many of their outdated restaurants. Chuck E. Cheese was once again seeing success. The 90s and early 2000s were the best financial years for Chuck E. Cheese. In order to continue its rapid expansion, Chuck E. Cheese raised money from Apollo Management Group, who bought the company for $950 million in 2014. The new owners updated the business model and carried out major expansion. They opened hundreds of new restaurants and even acquired Arizona-based Peter Piper Pizza. In 2015, Chuck E. Cheese had a major menu revamp. However, things had started to go downhill. The animatronics, which were once a major attraction at Chuck E. Cheese, did not attract kids anymore. With the introduction of new personal video game consoles, multiplayer video games, and handheld devices, the arcade games at Chuck E. Cheese were just too outdated. With decreasing revenues, increasing costs, and massive debt, the future looked bleak for Chuck E. Cheese. Then, the unimaginable happened: a worldwide pandemic. The coronavirus crisis hit, and it proved to be the nail in the coffin for Chuck E. Cheese. It could not pay off the massive amount of debt they incurred, and they filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in June of 2020. With hundreds of locations spanning 47 US states and 16 foreign countries, Chuck E. Cheese is a sleeping giant that may once again wake. This is, of course, if someone is willing to invest millions of dollars to revive it. But for now, the company is closing many of its locations and faces an uncertain future. Do you think Chuck E. Cheese has what it takes to make a comeback? Let us know in the comments section below. We hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, be sure to hit the subscribe button. Be sure to check back in on Mondays because we'll be dropping another interesting business story every week right here on Mogul Monday.